And then he says this, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Now, if you're in a wrestling match physically, they usually match you up with somebody that's about the same age, somebody that's about the same weight as you. In other words, they want you to be physically matched. But in our match, that's not the way it is. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Now, we wrestle in our flesh and our blood, but you need to understand who your opponent is. Many people lose the day and they lose the battle because they don't even know who they're wrestling. And when you're going through problems, you might think you're wrestling the teacher if you're having problems, but that's not who you're wrestling. There are situations in your family life where you think, well, I'm wrestling against mom or dad, but really and truly, that's not who you're wrestling. That's where the wrestling match takes place, maybe, but you need to understand who the real opponent is. And your teacher is not your real opponent. Your mother or your father is not the real opponent. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and against powers, against spiritual wickedness in dark places and spiritual wickedness in heavenly places. What is a principality? The word prince comes from that word. Also the word principal. These are people that have power. And that's the next thing he says. Powers. You will be wrestling people that are stronger than you, that are more powerful than you, and you need to understand you're not even wrestling people. It will take place in the physical world, but it is a spiritual battle. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Everything that you deal with, folks, is in flesh and blood, but you really are not wrestling flesh and blood. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of the darkness. You're wrestling against rulers in the spiritual world, against spiritual wickedness in heavenly places. Don't ever make the mistake that you think that Satan's in hell. Satan is a being that is more powerful than you, that is more cunning than you. And he will come against you. And if it is not him, it is his angels. Satan is not in hell. Hell is a place prepared for him, but he's not there yet. That's why the scripture says in 1 Peter 5:8, be sober, be vigilant, for your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may destroy. How many of you think you could take on a roaring lion by yourself? Probably not too many. That is why you have to put on the whole armor of God. Because if you try to wrestle Satan by yourself, if you try to fight him by yourself, you will be destroyed.